Senator Lindsey Graham is going nuts again, of course, over defending Israel because of Ireland considering renaming a park that was previously dedicated to an Israeli official. So this was just going on recently today. Ireland actually decided to withdraw the support to rename the park. Let me go ahead and share my screen here so you guys can take a look. Basically, what was going on? There we go. Dublin Council drops plans to rename Herzog Park after backlash. Lindsey Graham went on a rant. I'll show you in a second. Dublin City Council withdrew a proposal to rename Herzog from a small park in Rathgar, dedicated to a 1995 Israel's former president who grew up locally and liberated parts of Ireland as a British officer. The renaming effort aimed at honoring a young Palestinian girl murdered in Gaza drew criticism as divisiveness and a denial of Irish Jewish ancestry. Of course, whatever's going on in the world, if it has to do with Israel, a U.S. senator like Lindsey Graham and Israel's ambassador Mike Huckabee are going to be making a statement on it. So Lindsey Graham goes on a rant and he says this. Let me go ahead and scroll. There we are. When you think it couldn't get any worse in Ireland regarding its animosity towards Israel and the Jewish people, it just did. Apparently, the Dublin City Council is going to rename a park that was dedicated to Chaim Herzog, who was raised in Dublin and became the 6th president of Israel. Mr. Herzog's father was also the chief rabbi of Ireland. Some are calling for the park to be renamed Free Palestine Park, whatever that means. In any case, in case anyone had forgotten, Israel withdrew from Gaza only for Hamas to take over by force and govern by terror, becoming one of the largest terror organizations in the world and the instigator of the October 7th attack on the Jewish people. The Herzog family is one of the great families in the history of Israel. They are good people who have traditionally embraced the center politically. One of Mr. Chaim Herzog's sons is the current president of Israel, and another was one of his most recent Israeli ambassadors to the United States. I don't know when the people of Dublin or what the people of Dublin are trying to say, but this is what I hear: a complete turning upside down of history when it comes to Jewish people in the state of Israel. Modern Ireland is a beautiful country with great scenery, but unfortunately, it has become a cesspool of anti-Semitism. Of course, mentioning anti-Semitism once again. So much to say here. First off, of course, they're going to be blaming anti-Semitism even when it comes to renaming a city park that goes by an Israeli president. Of course, it has to do with anti-Semitism because the intent somebody like Lindsey Graham believes is because of their hatred towards Jews, which is absolutely ridiculous. Second thing, it didn't actually end up happening because of the amount of pressure. They decided not to end up renaming the park, which personally I think is kind of ridiculous. They should have just went through with it, if anything. But this has nothing to do with the United States. And Lindsey Graham still goes on a rant. Now, keep in mind, actually, that Lindsey Graham also, a few months back, Ireland was pushing forward a legislation that would make it illegal for Irish citizens to engage in financial transactions with Israeli settlements. So, of course, Israel was terrified of this going through because what's most worrisome is this starting off a domino effect. So Ireland ends up passing this legislation, and what if eventually one EU country does next? Spain, it goes on, Portugal, and eventually the entire EU starts to follow this policies. The idea of such a domino effect happening terrifies Israel. So what happens? Well, the Israeli lobby went into overdrive here in the United States. And you might remember this was just a few months back. One after another U.S. politician immediately condemning Ireland's proposal to ban trade with illegal Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank. And Lindsey Graham was one of them spearheading this, along with, I believe it was Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton. So this is the sort of thing that goes on. We have Israel that makes sure it controls EU foreign policy. And the way it does that is by America being the global superpower. If one of the EU states is doing something that Israel doesn't like, well, then what Israel is going to do is it's going to call on its buddies in the lobby, and the lobby is going to start pushing U.S. politicians to threaten those countries. And then after that happens, we start seeing an immediate push for legislation to take action against those countries. Actually, when those U.S. senators, I'm going to see if I can pull it up, when those U.S. senators threatened Ireland few months back, they actually sent a letter to the Department of Justice saying that that the United States should take sanctions against Ireland if the legislation were to pass. So now having the United States take action against countries that decide to have a certain foreign policy towards Israel and illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank. Illegal settlements, of course, by international law, which the United States doesn't want to follow. Even though all the way up until now, U.S. policy disregarded the settlements and viewed them as illegitimate until, of course, the most recent administration under Trump. So let me see if I could find it here. U.S. senators threatened Ireland. Actually, I made a post on it, so I could just go to my profile and be able to find it. Let me go here. So this happened a few months back, and I actually took a screenshot of all of the senators that ended up making a post about it, because there we go. Look at that. This all happened last year. Let me zoom in so you guys can see it. The more you look at it, the more crazy it becomes to see. It was all in concert. And it started off with Lindsey Graham. And here he is. And he says, I hope that Ireland will consider their efforts economically isolating Israel as they are in the fight for their very existence. I do not believe these efforts would be well received as in the United States, and they certainly would not go unnoticed. Look at the amount of US politicians taking action against Ireland for their policies towards Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories. Mike Lawler, of course, Mike Lawler is just the biggest cuck on earth. The guy is messed up. Something's wrong with that dude. Andy Ogles, Chairman Lisa McLean, Daniel Webster, Josh Guthenmeyer, Pete Stabar. So it just goes on and on and on. And this was all within the span of a day. Like, it felt as if the Israel lobby sent a mass message, and it was one after another, as if they were cued by their handlers, as Thomas Massey calls it, their Israel lobby AIPAC handlers. So this is kind of the thing that goes on. And what we're seeing now is Lindsey Graham hasn't had enough. Any sort of thing that Ireland wants to do, the U.S. politicians are now going to be taking action against it for what a foreign country decides to do with another foreign country. Nothing to do with the United States. Now we have U.S. politicians putting countries in line based on their foreign policy to Israel. Do you guys understand how that's not America first in any capacity? How by getting countries to fear us for their policies towards a project in the Middle East called Israel, how does that benefit America in any way? Why does the United States have to sour relationships with Ireland because of their policies towards illegal Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank? What's that have to do with America? Nothing, of course, but the Israel lobby is going in overdrive. And since all of our politicians are bought out and we're controlled by Israel, really, honestly, sometimes it feels like we are genuinely controlled by that foreign nation project. This is kind of the circumstances we've been thrown into. So let me go ahead and just show you a few other posts on this ridiculous Dublin thing. Let's go here. Let's see. Thousands. Let me just search up Dublin to Israel again, because I passed it. And here we go. Do you know what being owned by Zionists looks like? What it looks like when your entire political and media class is owned by Zionists? Here, look at it. U.S. senators are copy-pasting Israel lobby scripts with hysterical outrage about the name of a local city park in Dublin. Absolutely wild. The more you just think about it, the more it just so ridiculous. Lindsey Graham is constantly competing for top Israel cuck. Here's attacking Ireland's Dublin City Council for wanting to change the name of a park from an Israeli president's name to something else. Someone in South Carolina remind this bitch who he's supposed to work for. Lindsey Graham, senator from South Carolina, spent his Saturday night writing this long, bitchy, threatening rant about Dublin City Council offended by Israel by renaming a park. Poverty, failing schools, violent crime, addictions in South Carolina, this is what matters. So that's kind of the situation we're in, guys, where U.S. politicians are more subservient to the interests of Israel than they are the United States. We'll see how things unfold moving forward. We know that they said they're not going to actually end up renaming the park. This won't be the end of U.S. tense relations with the Irish island, because of the fact that Ireland is incredibly pro-Palestine, and they've been continuously pushing this sort of legislation forward. Ireland's new president actually is incredibly pro-Palestine, so should make a separate video on that too. If you found this video interesting, guys, make sure to go ahead and click the subscribe button below and give it a thumbs up. It helps my channel grow. And otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.